Welcome to ibbusinessandmanagement.com. I'm Mr. Burton, and today we are looking at topic 2.2 Organisational Structure. Organisational structure being the second topic in our Human Resources unit. I'm glad to have you with me today. I hope you learned something new. Remember, everything you need to know, ibbusinessandmanagement.com, your one-stop place for everything IB Business and Management. Sit back, take some notes, learn something, please. Accountability, this is a high level topic. And with the senior management, we can say accountability comes with a clear organisational structure. We can see who is accountable to who and for which functions and which teams. With the clear organisational structure, senior management have got better control in the running of their organisation. With accountability, those who meet or exceed targets are recognised and rewarded, which is great in terms of employee motivation. And employee motivation is going to be one of the larger topics in this human resources topic. And with clear organisational structure and accountability being very, very apparent, those that are failing to meet their targets, getting things in late, not meeting their deadlines, these individuals, these departments, they can clearly be identified. Bureaucracy, another high level topic. Now, by bureaucracy, we simply define that as being an organisational system with standardised procedures and rules. They're very clear expectations of how you do things, who does things, and how those things are done. So, the execution of tasks governed by administrative rules and procedures. These rules and procedures are prescribed. Rules, responsibilities, standardized procedures, and typically formal hierarchical structures. Everybody in a place, and every place has a set of standardized procedures that need to be done.
Aw, crap!
Now, the disadvantages are that bureaucracy can make tasks and extra effort, time-consuming paperwork, and they may well be unnecessary for quite a bit of the time involved in keeping up with the paperwork. Long official chains of command are typical within bureaucratic organisations, but on the upside, the business is conducted exactly as managers want. Within the bureaucratic organisation, who's responsible for what, who needs to do what, and how they need to do it is set out, chiseled in stone. Everybody is very aware of exactly how everything is done. And therefore, accountability and responsibilities are very, very clear. Key topics: centralisation and decentralisation. With centralisation, the vast majority of decision making is performed by a very small number of people, and decisions are made through the person or people at the centre and not necessarily with any communication between other people. So this would be an example of a centralised structure. Key people in the middle, overseeing the decision making, and the rest of the workers surrounding those key decision makers implementing the decisions.
Woohoo!
Now, with a centralised structure, we get rapid decision making, better control of the process, and a better sense of direction. Everybody knows what they're doing.
Aw, crap!
But we get delays. All decisions are being made just by one person typically. There's a lot of pressure, a lot of stress of senior management. It's their ideas on the line. They're responsible for overseeing everybody within a particular network. Inflexibility. If you are within the centralized structure, you're typically not communicating with a vast range of people. You are relaying decisions back between your team leader, and it can be quite demotivating for staff. And obviously we have here the decentralized structure. Key people in the middle, they have delegated responsibilities to other very key people, who in turn perhaps delegate to other people, and so on. So that key person is not directly responsible for everybody within the organization. There's delegation going on, and because they're not central, they're not key, we say that decentralization, it's a decentralized network or a structure. Some decision-making responsibility are passed on to others in an organization. So this is one of the key features of a decentralized organization. And departments or regional offices can be empowered to make decisions on behalf of an organization. They don't necessarily have to check every time with that key person right at the center, the CEO. It's great because you get input from the workforce. People like to have their ideas recognized. They like to use their talents. Improved accountability and high morale typically follows.
Aw, crap.
But there is a loss of control. You are giving up control. You're delegating responsibilities. And from here, we may have a greater chance of making mistakes. There must be effective communication within the organization. So there's greater reliance on communication channels being effective. And sometimes there'll be a duplication of functions. So for example, if the Indian division is separate from the US division, the Indian division may well have their own marketing and accounts people, and those marketing and accounts people can be doing much of the same function as the US division of the business. So there can be duplication of functions. And anywhere duplications of functions exist, there is possible room for cost cutting. Decentralized or not decentralized, that is a question. And the answer, the decision, is going to depend on several factors. Several factors including the size of the organization. Now obviously, well perhaps not so obviously, but the larger the firm becomes, the greater the need for decentralization. Multinational conglomerates, for example, can't be efficiently operated by highly centralized structures. Those board of directors, those senior managers, have got to give up control, got to pass on delegation. The scale and importance of decisions. Generally, decisions that have high cost implications and or consequences are going to be centralized. Those very important decisions, strategic decisions that govern the long-term future of the business, there's no way those are going to be decentralized out, the responsibility passed to other people. Key players, board of directors, senior management are going to be making and overseeing those decisions. The level of risk involved, high risk decisions again are going to remain in the hands of the key decision makers, so they're going to remain centralized. You don't want some lowly subordinate playing with $6 billion worth of your bank's money. We've seen this quite often in the news. Some rogue trader making huge bets, highly risky, highly speculative, and wiping billions off the value of the particular bank that they're working for. The corporate culture. Organisations such as computer software companies that rely on the creative and innovative skills of employees will tend to be more decentralised. The culture of the organisation will influence expectations about the degree to which senior management will delegate power and responsibility. So corporate culture, very important. We'll next look at management attitudes and competencies. Managers that have a positive outlook toward workers' attitudes and abilities are more likely to pass down authority and responsibility. And by contrast, some managers are just control freaks, very anal. They are unwilling to let go of control or their status and will therefore centralise decision-making authorities. I want things done my way. This sort of person. You've all probably met a teacher that is a little bit like that. And finally, the use of information and communication technologies will be key as well. Firms that adapt up-to-date methods of ICT are able to delegate to a greater extent. Better use of effective communication technology. So for example, firms that have a significant number of teleworkers, remember we looked at teleworkers in Unit 2.1, a significant number of teleworkers empower their employees to work from home. Another type of organisational structure that we need to be familiar with at the higher level is something called a matrix structure, project teams, and sometimes referred to as a cloud organisation. Now we define these as a flexible organisation of employees from different departments within an organisation temporarily working together on a project. So that people are selected from different functional departments. We might have someone from research, someone from production, someone from personnel, marketing, finance, sales, all brought together, and a clear project is given, and these individuals come together within their matrix, within their project teams, work on the project, nail the project, and disband and go away and perform their normal tasks or move on to the next project, which may not involve working with the same individuals again. Now, key point, matrix structures work best in a flat hierarchical organisation. Here, let's just explain it in a little more detail. For these things to be effective, we need a culture of team working and collaboration. These people are coming together and working in teams. They need to know how to work in teams. They need to know how to be collaborative. Grateful career and personal development opportunities. These projects are something new. It's something new to get your teeth into. You have to develop new skills to be able to implement the project. You'll pick up different ideas, different skills, working with different people. Each time a new project comes along, it's different, it's new, it's exciting, it adds interest to your work. You're not doing the same thing day in, day out. Here's a new project, let's work on it, let's nail it, let's finish it. Great. Now we have experts from different parts of the business all working together. And because of this expertise that's being developed, it's going to increase the chance of successful task completion. So if you're developing a new product, it's great to have someone from marketing there. So you'll know how to work the price, how to work the distribution channels, how to get it promoted, etc., etc. With these people from different parts of the business all coming together, everybody has got the areas of expertise, and it increases the chance of a task being successfully completed. And the pressure on senior management is reduced. You've delegated responsibility to these project teams. Flexible structures, we're not talking about our traditional hierarchical organisation here. If the workforce is sufficiently skilled, human resources can be adapted quickly in the face of rapid change. Now we're talking higher level extension here. They're important to a business since they determine how decisions are made and how things are done in the workplace. This is traditional, right? Organisational structures are important to business. They determine how decisions are made and how things are done in the workplace. Now, traditional hierarchical structures may be unsuitable for today's business environment. They have too many layers of management and are too rigid to react to sudden changes in the economy. By contrast, the flexible organisational structure, it enables a business to adapt when there's a need to respond to rapid change, and if they can successfully do that, then they should allow the business to be more successful. Another feature of a flexible organisation is the development of a multi-skilled workforce, which is great. And this involves training workers to carry out more than one function. And if they can do that, they can be switched to another operation as and when needed. So for example, staff in a bakery and delicatessen departments of a large supermarket might be trained to operate tills at the checkout. They can then be redeployed as cashiers during peak periods at the checkout, or substitute a cashier who may be absent from work for reasons such as sickness. Henry Mintzberg here, we have got his theory of the types of flexible organisations. Now Henry Mintzberg said that, well, he suggested that the internal structure of an organisation depends on both the complexity and the pace of change. Mintzberg argued that a business can only remain successful if its organisational structure is flexible enough to deal with rapid changes in the market. And he suggests that organisational structures can consist of up to 6 basic parts. And all of these different parts can be present within an organisation, but one of these tends to dominate. One of these tends to dominate the organisation. So we have innovative organisations, and that's a system which requires people being split into small project teams that deal with a specific task or problem, such as an advertising agency. There is decentralised decision making, no standard procedures for dealing with routine problems, and as the teams work on individual and independent projects, the organisation becomes very flexible and adaptive to change. Entrepreneurial organisations, here decision-making power in such organisation is retained by the strategic apex. There is direct supervision of staff and decision-making is centralised, meaning that flatter hierarchical structures exist. Mintzberg here argued that centralised decision-making means that the strategic apex is flexible and quick in responding and adapting to organisational change. Machine organisations, here coordination is done by specifying the work processes of people, such as those in the operating core or technostructure. Works based on what Mintzberg calls machine bureaucracy, specialisation and standardisation. And we've looked at these bureaucratic organisations before. Procedures are formalised so communication is clear and reliable. However, the fixed processes and procedures mean that organisation is inflexible, which may be problematic if market conditions unexpectedly change. Divisionalised organisation, coordination is through the middle line and ensures that the teams achieve standardisation of output. And since there's standardisation, such structures are inflexible in responding to rapid change. But Mintzberg did suggest that effective decentralisation and delegation of decision-making power to divisions can lead to a higher level of flexibility. Professional organisations. In this structure, professionals with standardised skills tend to make up most of the operating core. They rely on their prior knowledge and learned skills. However, professional bureaucracy is inflexible. Since this system uses highly specialised staff, we're talking brain surgeons and astronauts here, highly specialised staff who are not adaptable to their roles. And missionary organisations is the last one, last type of organisation. Here we are referring to the coordination through the standardisation of organisational norms, so the ideology. And in such structures, every individual works on the same set of beliefs and norms, rather like religious organisations, perhaps therefore the term missionary. The informal organisation, again high level extension here. Very, very, very important parts of companies. You know, relationships exist beyond the formal groups. Within the school that I work at, I certainly don't just have a relationship with the commerce teachers, those teachers within my department. I have relationships with teachers in the history department, teachers in the maths department, senior management, support staff. Oh my God, the computer people, the ICT people, those support staff at our school are some of the most important people. But do I have a clear structural relationship to them? No. This is the informal organisation. Those that exist outside the formal structure. And typically these are friends and people who share similar interests. Obviously I have a great deal of interest in information technology. There's a group of us at school who share the same interests. Now this can take the form of, if a company, they can develop these networks, develop these relationships, because these networks offer great support within the working environment. Networks are people you can turn to for advice. Those people that you trust, you can perhaps let off a little bit of steam, talk about a decision that you're not particularly happy with, and just general people you can communicate with. Talk about general day-to-day stuff on a normal basis as friends. It's all informal. And these informal relationships are really important. You develop a sense of belonging. That sense of belonging is motivating in itself. Facilitates communication. You know you have your friends at work, and your friends will know other friends, and they'll be able to bring in advice and ask you and tell you who to get in contact with. They assist with ideas and decision making. Your ideas get stale surrounded by the same people. Marketing talking to marketing, production talking to production. Sometimes if production and marketing are mixing in these informal networks, ideas are going to flow. And getting towards
the following
the end
is
now,
brought to you by
about
Cheetos.
outsourcing.
Let loose at Cheetos.com.
A new report from the Department of Labor finds an increasing number of American workers are outsourcing their jobs. For more on this crucial issue, let's go to Joshua Russell in the Money Room.
Thanks, Brendan. For years, corporations have been outsourcing their labor to developing nations as a way to cut costs. But recently, many individual employees have been sending their own work overseas.
I take the money that I would have spent on coffee and pay someone in India to do my job for me. It's allowed me to unleash my full potential.
Philadelphia accountant Donald Felton outsources the majority of his daily workload to Jahanara Kashem, an accountant based in Bangalore, India.
I get my assignment from my supervisor and I send it off to Jahanara. Sometimes I'll look at it when it's done, but usually everything's right.
Mr. Kashem says he's extremely happy with the 68 cents an hour Donald pays him.
I'm able to feed my family, and Mr. Felton can devote more time to his fantasy football team.
And Donald is just one of the close to 700,000 workers who've come to rely on overseas labor.
I've actually gotten 2 raises since Jahanara started. He's really good at doing my work.
But it's not just lower-level employees who have embraced the trend. At Donald's firm, many senior-level managers are now outsourcing their jobs as well. Workers representing the company's executive officers meet via conference call every Friday.
That is
No,
totally
I don't think Mr.
unprofessional.
Richmond will agree with those cuts. He feels very strongly we need the consulting
We need
division.
paradigm shifting solutions.
Let's dialogue this out.
Some overseas workers have done so well, they've been able to outsource their own outsourced work to those even poorer than themselves.
I pay a starving manager accountant one handful of rice per day to fill out the expense reports that are sent to me from the U.S.
Analysts predict that if the trend continues by 2025, the world's poorest man, Ahmed Khalili of Afghanistan, will be doing 83% of the globe's work. It's a scenario that would suit Donald Felton just fine.
I'm trying to get to a point where I can just lay in one place and not have to do anything ever.
With the Onion News Network, I'm Joshua Russell.
Thanks, Joshua. Personal outsourcing is expected to grow as much as 20% over the next 5 years, according to the Filipino team that completed the Department of Labor's report. Coming up next, a new study finds the meth epidemic is hitting worthless Americans hardest.
Remember I was telling you last time about Cody and his trilingual immersion program? Where he's really excelling is Mandarin. Vanessa, Mandarin.
Blah, blah, blah.
I'm gonna go to the car.
Oh,
Papa Chester's proud of you.
The Onion News, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Now, outsourcing, our final little part of 2.2. This is the moving of non-core activities. So we're talking about things like legal, HR. Right. Many businesses do not perform all their human resources functions internally. They're going to outsource some tasks to specialized organisation within the same country or perhaps overseas. Now, the functions being outsourced typically could include payroll management, calculating pay, income tax, other deductions, and transfers into the workers' bank accounts, very often done by an outside firm that specializes in payroll management. Fringe benefits administration, legal issues relating to employees, so contracts and redundancy, and quite often just outsourced to a legal firm, perhaps one that specializes in employment law. Recruitment, quite often management does not do their own recruitment. They employ a human resources recruitment company to find them the best and brightest, and perhaps to also set up training for staff as well. And perhaps keeping human resources records on training, appraisal and qualifications will be outsourced to another firm as well. And it's something very much in the play at the moment with cloud computing. So no longer is someone employed to look after all of those things. Some data storage firm will be keeping those records safe. Now, why are people doing it? What are the reasons? What are the benefits? Well, most importantly, it reduces costs. It increases efficiency as well by using specialist human resource companies. It provides greater expertise, so for example, of complex area of employment law management, it's going to be clueless. It's great to have someone very specialized there that knows the ins and outs in detail. It aids corporate growth by removing HR resources as a constraining factor. Remaining internal HR staff are able to focus on strategic policy and decisions, and in small businesses it allows the owner or owners to focus on gaining new markets and increasing profit. But again, outsourcing of human resource functions comes at a cost as well. So local knowledge, for example, of the local labour market and ownership of the HR process may be lost. Cost savings may not be significant as much new HR management software, payroll and record keeping could be employed after appropriate training within house, in-house. And the process of outsourcing may give employees a sense of being controlled, recruited and paid by outside agencies, less of a personal service within the organisation. And even extensive outsourcing of HR functions can never quite remove the internal management responsibility of forming good working relationships with employees. That cannot be delegated to other organisations. So things that need to be in place, or things to look out for with outsourcing. So definitely the effective two-way communication, careful coordination of the task. Obviously there needs to be some sort of mutual trust between the outsourcer and the client, which is typically built up over time. But even if there is a lot of trust, the quality standards still need to be carefully monitored by the organisation. And any sort of restructuring, any sort of redundancies are going to cause uncertainties, which is going to affect employee motivation. And it's basically bad PR. Anytime a business lays off a lot of workers, bad publicity for that organisation. And remember, outsourcing is different to offshoring, which is relocating business functions and processes overseas. Taking the Apple iPad and getting it manufactured in China. Offshoring is different to outsourcing. One final question to finish up this section, 2.2 Organisational Structure. Again, I'm Mr. Burton. A pleasure having you with me again today. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. We'll see you back here, same time, same place, for 2.3, when we start to look at our communications topic. Thank you very much.